Good morning. We're in Psalm 119 again, verses 81 through 88. It says, "My soul fills with longing for your salvation. I wait for your word. My soul, or my eyes, fill with longing for your word, saying, when will you comfort me? For I am like a wineskin in the smoke, but I do not forget your statutes. How many are the days of your slave? When will you execute judgment on those who persecute me? The arrogant have dug pits for me, men who are not in accord with your law. All your commandments are faithful, and they have persecuted me with lying. Help me. They almost made an end of me on the earth, but as for me, I did not forsake your precepts. Revive me according to your loving kindness, so that I may keep the testimony of your mouth." Again, the psalmist is just continuing in this petition to the Lord about the things in his life that are going on and how much he longs for his word and his salvation. So let's just look at a few things that we can point to here that the psalmist is saying. Verse 81, "My soul fails with longing for your salvation. I wait for your word." The word fails there means complete or full up. And so what the psalmist is saying here is that he is consumed. He is filled up with this longing for the salvation of the Lord. And the word salvation there means deliverance. So obviously, as if you've been with me on all of these videos in Psalm 119, there are things going on in the psalmist's life. People are talking about him, they're lying to him, they're deceiving him, they're persecuting him, and it just seems to be an ongoing thing. And so the psalmist is full up of longing for the deliverance of God. I wonder if maybe you've been at a place in your life where you're asking God for something over and over and over again, and you're just longing for the answer. Or maybe, like the psalmist, you have been subject to, lies or persecution or any of those kinds of things that the psalmist has been talking about here, and you're waiting and you're longing for the salvation of God. See, the scriptures apply to us. Old Testament, New Testament, it does not matter. We have been given the whole book because it all is for us. It deals with the things that we deal with, and it applies to us even today and on until the Lord comes back. So he says, "My soul is longing for your deliverance. I wait for your word." This is the Hebrew word for spoken word, for discourse. So the psalmist says that he is full up and waiting on the deliverance of, or longing for the deliverance of the Lord, and he's waiting to hear from God. I know there are many times in my life that I have waited to hear from God. Been in situations that, invariably I put myself in, but been in situations where it was just a constant onslaught of trouble and tribulation and trial and persecution and all of those kinds of things. And I was waiting for the Lord. And in that, it's a difficult thing just to keep singularly focused on God, and not succumb to the onslaught of this or that is happening in your life. I'm sure that you can think of some times in your life where things just kept coming at you, and it was hard not to get distracted by those things. So we have to be faithful, and we have to be steadfast in trusting in God for all of our situations and circumstances, and for that deliverance that only He can give. Excuse me. Verse 82 says, "My eyes fill with longing for your word, saying, when will you comfort me?" The Hebrew word for word there is the word promise, or it means promise. So it's a different word from verse 81 to verse 82. But I want you to see the connection here of longing for the promise and the comfort that comes from it. The psalmist has laid this out for us many times over throughout this chapter that we've been going through. But again, here he connects the promise of God with his comfort. looking for the comfort that comes from the promise of God. So we must do the same thing as we deal with life, as we pilgrim on through this world that is not our home. All this temporary stuff that screams at you that it's forever, right? That this is going to make or break your life, when in fact it is just temporary and your life is hidden in Christ if you are a believer. And so being connected to the promise brings comfort. Verse 83 says, "For I am like a wineskin in the smoke, but I do not forget your statutes." This may seem a little confusing, but it's really quite simple. If a wineskin, back in the day, they made wineskins to contain their wine, um, and they're very breathable. They move and they constrict, and depending on how much wine is in the wineskin, they have to be very pliable. But when a wineskin is submitted to smoke, it becomes dry. The smoke dries the wineskin out, and it brittles it up. And it makes it useless. As soon as you put wine in it, it's going to bust. And so, what the psalmist is saying here is that he is dried up. He's tired. He's exhausted. He's become brittle and frail and useless, in his own mind because of all the things that are going on around him. And we're going to talk about some more of that here in just a moment. But look at the tagline there. I'm tired, I'm useless, I'm brittle, I'm frail, I'm just consumed, but I will not forget your statutes. So no matter what happens to me, no matter how beat down we become, we should never forget the statutes of God. Verse 84 says, "How many are the days of your slave? When will you execute judgment on those who persecute me?" 85. "The arrogant have dug pits for me, men who are not in accord with your law." Again, these people that are persecuting the psalmist here, he said they dug pits for me, and that's an illustration of laying traps. We have deception here and manipulation here, and all of these things that people set traps for other people, and hoping they could fall into it, hoping this person will fall into it so that they can laugh and point and mock and scorn God. Especially for a Christian, if you're living the life and you are sold out to Jesus, people lay traps for you and say, "Well, what about this?" or "What about that?" or "You did this," or "You did that." And it's just an effort. It's just the result of sin, the sin nature in their life, and it's an effort to scorn God and mock God and mock the one you serve. So, traps, be careful of traps. Men who are not in accord with your law, people who are not in accord with the law of God, do not have your best interests at heart, and they're not even considering serving God or glorifying God. They're trying to glorify themselves, and if that means stepping on you in the process, that's what they will do. So you have to be prepared for that. Your mind has to be focused on God. You have to meditate in His Word so that when these things happen, that Word comes right up out of your heart and you remember the promises of God. You don't forget the statutes of God. Verse 86, "All your commandments are faithful, and they have persecuted me with lying. Help me. They almost made an end of me on the earth, but as for me, I did not forsake your precepts." Just what I was just saying. People will lie about you. They will say all manner of things about you. And sometimes there's a bit of truth in that. Maybe they remember you from 20 years ago when you weren't serving God, and they still think of you as that person because they don't see you serving the one you say you serve. There has to be a difference in the way that you live your life in order for people to see that. But there's still the sin nature, and there's still people with ill motives and things that are not pleasing to God, that they will set traps for you, and they will lie about you and say all manner of things about you just to trip you up or make you look bad so that they can take focus off of God and how He has changed your life. They're not serving, they're not living in accord with His law. They're not serving Him, and they're not serving His word, and they're not trying to give Him any credit for any changes that are in your life. So you must be careful. I'm not telling you all this to make you paranoid. I'm telling you all this so that you can be prepared when it happens, because it's going to happen. And you've got to have somewhere to lean when these things happen, because the onslaught comes and it doesn't seem to stop, and you're just shaking your head going, what is going on? What do I do? Well, you lean on the promise of God and you trust in Him for your deliverance. Last verse, verse 88. Revive me according to your loving kindness, so that I may keep the testimony of your mouth. Awaken me, revive me, make me alive again, make me awake again. Help me to shake the dust off of this constant pressure and problems, according to your loving kindness. And that's our word that we have defined a couple times now. This favor from God, this pity, this grace and kindness that is extended to someone who is lowly. You know, the Bible says, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and He will exalt you in due time. He will lift you up. He will revive you if you humble yourself and trust in Him. So today I want to encourage you to humble yourself and trust in the Lord. Continue to read His word and pray and lean on the promises of God when troubles and trials and persecutions come. This world is not our home. One day, when you pass out of this life, or I pass out of this life, or when the Lord comes, whichever happens first, we will be ushered into our home, our forever home, and there will be no more problems like this. But as for us today, and how in the life that we must live until those things happen, we must trust in the Lord and lean on His promises. I hope you have a great day.